Can you give me a brief sort of illustration of your writing day when you're on fiction?
Well, I mean, sometimes I'll be working. I start off and tend to write a complete first draft, but I usually tail off towards the end of a first draft and start on the second until I finish, before I finish the first draft. I get up very early in the morning.
What sort of time?
So about 6:15. I think fiction's very close to dream. It's a kind of structured dreaming. I find it very helpful to suspend disbelief in my own work if I've moved from a state in which I'm completely suspending disbelief in the most astonishing things, which is what dream is like. So if you kind of wake up and you're immediately, it's like just moving into a different dream, that feeling when you kind of wake up and fall back to sleep and go back into dream sleep. So the fiction becomes an extension of that. I work till 7:30, then I take the kids to school, give them breakfast, do their packed lunches, take them to school, come back, resume work about 9:30. Then I tend to work till lunchtime on fiction, and I'll either be on first drafts, or I'll be on second drafts and first drafts, or I may be on first, second and third drafts simultaneously on different parts of the same manuscript, the same thing.
Are you still having the Postit note collages?
Yeah, I'm a bit less, in some ways I'm more Postit notey, and in some ways I'm less. I mean, I do have this room that's nearly completely covered now in Postit notes, which has become a bit of a fetish. Yeah, I love a Postit note, and I've now got, my new addition is I've got, those sort of spikes you put bills on. I've got spikes that I'm filling up with, because I can't bear to throw any Postit note away now. I've become a slightly kind of weird old man living in piles of rubbish, but I don't mind that. Doesn't bother me. But actually, I don't put them on the walls so much. I tend to, notes go into notebooks, notes go out of notebooks onto Postit notes get lined up on sheets of paper, or sometimes on the wall if they're longer cooking projects, but they can't. But yeah, it's Postit notes. I love a Postit note. They're so discreet and neat. They're like haikus, aren't they? You can only fit max about 15 words on them. So
do you buy them in bulk?
Not in enormous bulk.
No?
I mean, no, not a huge bulk. I run through about 18 little padlets a month, something like that.
So would you say this is your only vice at the moment, Postit notes?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't even know the Postit notes class as a vice, do they? I mean, a vice, I think, has to be quite sort of ruinous to be a vice, doesn't it?
How important are sales for you with your books?
Well,
are you a volume type author? You're not selling Jeffrey Archer a million hardbacks straight at number one. How do you? What is your ambition for a new novel?
Well, I think you can only hope that a book will find people who want to read it, really, and who will enjoy, in the widest sense, reading what you write. I mean, I don't think. I remember talking to quite a well-known American writer once, who, in all sincerity, said when he got on a plane and saw people reading John Grisham or whoever it was, he started fuming and sort of balling his fists. And I said, well, why? He said, because I want them to be reading my books. And I sort of thought, well, what if they don't want to? It's kind of, and isn't that a sort of rather insane kind of messianic view? I mean, I think that's a kind of introjection into the present of the kind of what I call the delusion of posterity. I think that a lot of writers who have a fair amount of critical acclaim, and perhaps they get onto some syllabuses, they begin in their middle years or late middle years to get the delusion of posterity, or if they have a bigger measure of success, they may get it even earlier, where they start thinking, wow, these books are going to be here after I've gone. I'm part of the canon, I've arrived. And the truth of the matter is a lot of what's even on syllabuses now and in the academy will be toast. We've seen it happen before. And so it's kind of a bit of a delusion to invest yourself emotionally, or your sense of what you're doing in that what I view as a delusion.
So what does drive you then? Just to be able to write?
It's just the practice of it, yeah, for me. Absolutely. It's
not driven by money?
Well, not as a writer, no. If I was driven by money as a writer, I would do what one, I think it's, let's see why I shouldn't say who isn't it Tony, Julie Birchall's older husband, what's he called? Tony Parsons, who actually focus groups the plots for his books. To discover whether they'll kind of play with his target market.
And kind of test a movie.
Yeah. And then, as it were, writes according, rather like New Labour, devising their policies, devises a book that he thinks will sell to his market.
What do you think of that process?
Well, I think it's for me. If I was going to do that, I wouldn't be a writer. I'd be making disposable razors or any other product. I mean, there'd be no requirement for me to write anymore because you're no longer involved in what's exciting for me, which is just the relationship between my mind and the world in all its multifarious ways and other possible worlds and possible minds I can imagine, and putting that into words. That's what excites me. That's what motivates me to get up in the morning, just the sheer, praxis of writing in that way. It's no longer, for me, even the artifact. It's no longer the individual book. It's just the process, and it happens to reach fruition in one book or another. I mean, as a person, distinct from that writerly, I'm as greedy as anybody else. But but it doesn't seem to filter in to my writing. I get up. I mean, I can think of all sorts of examples of this. If I focus grouped my books, I wrote a book a few years ago called Dorian, and it has a sort of on line 7, there is an extreme swear word. And I looked at this extreme swear word and I thought, you know what, you could almost guarantee yourself X thousand number of sales and a better critical reception if you crossed that out. And it would cost nothing in a sense but it was the mot juste. For the piece, it was the right word. I don't have an issue I don't use these words to shock necessarily, except where shock is a necessary part of what I'm doing. And it was necessary, so I had to stay.
A lot of people pick up on your sort of expansive vocabulary. You said yourself, sometimes you're showing off.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Americans have that expression, $5 words, don't they? It's full of $5 words. I don't know. I think it isn't so much that I can't see the argument for writing things entirely using a vocabulary that your anticipated reader is going to understand without reference. I can see the point of that. I can understand that in a way it's going to make your writing more direct and more apprehensible and almost allow the reader not to have to think about style and not be kind of tripped up in the process. But I can also see that there's a kind of, that's sort of too facile in a way, that writing can do other things, and that, we have this amazing language with this astonishingly large vocabulary, and, why not use it? Put it this way, as a reader, when I read something and I find a word I don't know, it doesn't bother me. I do just reach for a dictionary. I mean, and unless it seems...
I thought you knew all the words then.
No, I'm not obsessive about the words at all. I also think that it's sort of, I don't know, just sort of, I think it's lazy and too easy to just write in a restricted vocabulary. It doesn't excite me. And I write for myself principally, or rather I write for readers who want to read what I want to write. So I don't have to think about the minute. It's rather like the example of Tony Parsons. If I start thinking you're going to read one of my books and it's going to irritate you to reach for a dictionary, then I'm thinking about you. I'm no longer thinking about what I'm writing. And the more I think about you, the more I'm going to cut my cloth to suit an audience, and the more I might as well be making widgets.